Welcome to GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith, along with Ivan Osaretz at the table. Big treat tonight. Chuck Kriese is back with us. Also on the phone from Dallas is Dave Anderson. From Toronto, Richard Hernandez. David was once asked, or we asked David, what would be a theme for improving tennis in America? David said, Back to the Future. So now that's our topic, and I couldn't think of anybody better to lead us through this. And I think having Richard on the line from the Great White North, you can tell us, Richard, it's pretty much the same thing in Canada. I do think now, as we're recording this, the Australian Open starting, and when that comes around, I mean, it's such a great celebration of tennis. But I tell people we have 4 Super Bowls. But for our listeners, Chuck Kriese, no introduction in tennis. I mean, almost 50 years coaching college tennis, starting way back with Mr. Hopman. But everybody, welcome, Chuck. Thanks for being with us. Chuck, lead us off here. What would you think what needs to be done to improve tennis in the US of A? Where would we begin?
Well, I had, I've written a few things out. You didn't mean what the topic was going to be, but I think anybody out there listening would have to ask a question, is our sport of tennis in trouble? Yes or no, one way or another, or is it sort of in between? A lot of people are saying that it's in trouble and it's got an identity crisis. I would start out by saying, and then maybe we could go from there. Has it lost its identity? Is it elite sport? A tremendous artistic expression that athletes give. It's very close to great music or great art, or is it just entertainment and recreational activity? I think that's the biggest thing. And in college, Steve, everybody's asking the question, is it an educational experience or an entertainment event that they're trying to, push for? And then so I think the big first question is our sport in trouble? And then I guess we could go from there, and talk about, some things.
Well, certainly, Chuck, I'm 70. You're a little older than I am. We went through the tennis boom, and James Van Allen invented the tiebreaker, and tennis was packaged. It could be on TV because the sets ended at 7-6 instead of 22-20. I think pickleball now is it's reflecting the tennis boom where everybody's playing. And I think in some ways it reflects American society. Certainly it's great to see the older people out there exercising, but it's invading our sport. That's one thing. That's one point I would make. Let's go to David. Why don't you go ask Chuck a question or make a comment to his comments?
Yeah, I think I don't even think we need to ask the question: is our sport in trouble? If you're in the trenches, like everybody here on this call is, I think it's evident that that the people in tennis need to take a hard look and have an aggressive plan. We use the words the letters GPS, Steve, on here a lot in terms of player development, but I think tennis itself needs a GPS. Our governing body certainly could use some help defining what it is that their main goal is, based on what Chuck just said. Are we trying to improve numbers? Are we trying to increase the number of players, on the tour? In the United States, what is the primary goal? But I think without hesitation, I feel in the years I've been alive, tennis is definitely in trouble.
Well, Chuck, you had such a long career in college tennis. I think the private sector, junior tennis, has become too much of a business. It's money first. It's all about profit. Richard, how about you? What do you think with Chuck's question? Is tennis in trouble in Canada?
Well, I would say yes and no. From a visual standpoint, we're seeing a lot more tennis. The Tennis Channel, the sports channels up here carry a significant amount of tennis around the two events that we have up here, U.S. Open and the Wimbledon and French Open, Australian Open. So we get a fair amount of coverage. But the question I have for you, Chuck, and again, I appreciate you even having me on, Steve. A real honor to even speak at the same table as Coach Kriese. But the question I have is, and I remember in one of your previous podcasts, you talked about tennis being an elite sport, a country club sport. And I believe it just with what Steve said about it being a commodity at the junior level, it's become full circle. And I think coaches are defining themselves by the revenue they make and not necessarily by the development as a whole. And I'm not talking about individual successes. I'm talking about, you've got a 6-year-old that starts with you. How long does he stay with you, and how does he look, 6 to 14 years into the game if he's still there? So those are the questions that I think we're in trouble. I think we have too many starts in tennis and not enough longevity with development with younger players, and it goes to a number of questions I'll have you going into this, Chuck. But that's where I see it. I see that it's good. It's there from a visual standpoint, but on Steve's, just to piggyback what Steve said, I think we've got some serious issues with player development, and I'm not just talking about skills and fitness. I'm talking about development as a whole person, and I think that's where we're in big trouble.
Chuck, before we came on the air, you mentioned, thanks, Richard. You mentioned, being at the Citadel. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about the Citadel? And you said it's like coaching in the '80s, and if you could expand upon that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Where we're going here is exactly what I was hoping we might talk about. I wanted to lead in by saying that I never, as a child, and most of you as well, because you stayed in tennis for a long, long time, and it's much, much more than an entertainment event or a recreational activity. And it's much, much deeper. I've never had a lesson, went to the park every day because I loved, I say I got free drugs I got at the park, not free drugs, 3 drugs. I got dopamine, adrenaline, and endorphins as a child, as a kid. I was 13 years old. I'd go there. The dopamine rush was the first thing that I as an athlete, I played Indiana high school basketball, played football. I did all the sports, but the way that the ball felt on the racket and how hard it was to hit the ball. I was a pretty good athlete, and it was hard to do. Hard to pick up is very hard to put down. I always say this about pickleball. Easy to pick up will be easy to put down. Hard to pick up is very hard to put down. But as a child, as a young man, I would stay there for hours on the backboard, hitting on the backboard, trying to find the sweet spot. And it felt like hitting a jump shot or something in basketball. You hit it on the center of the strings. And played for a whole year with a Western forehand grip on serves, returns, volleys, everything, until some man walked up and showed me how to hold the racket. And but that's most of us probably in that generation had that experience. We played the sport because it was very, very special. It'd been like sitting down at the piano the first time and figuring out how to play your first song and things like that. But the dopamine from that feel, the adrenaline from competing, I didn't ever want to lose. We were competitors. But then also the endorphins from the training, those were the 3 drugs. But we have skipped over this, and I don't want to run too fast with this, but right away, about 1980, when the technology changed and the big rackets came in, I'd been coaching at Clemson for 5 years. I realized all of my players through the 70s used to go to the wall and hit on the wall and hit on the wall and hit on the wall after practice and things. Almost immediately when the technology changed and made it easier to hit the ball, players sort of stopped going to the backboard as much. And they don't go to the backboard like they once did. So I'm going, whoa, and all of a sudden, if you make something easier, it does not make it better. And whether it's in golf, using high tech golf clubs to make it easier and things, there's a reason. But the point I'm getting to is that there's a reason why we did this. It's like music. It's like art. It's like somebody fell in love with painting. It's like somebody falls in love with dance. It's like someone who falls in love with something that speaks to their inner self. And I mean, I'm going very deep and very passionate about this because to this day, none of you would be in coaching, and neither would I if it was just, hey, I make some good money out of this. You don't stay in it, but you love to see somebody, there's a much deeper value. So the point is when we took this out, and anything that we do that becomes marketable, or in our country, what we do, the first thing we do is we try to market it, and we try to see if we can make money out of it. The development of tennis over the past 40 to 50 years has, right after the tennis boom, marketeers and marketing people have been the people who moved the sport. Yes, it's everybody's been able to play. Yes, every neighborhood gets to play. Yes, we've done this. We've introduced it to so many more people. But it's not a sport that appeals to everybody. It's not. And it went back when we were kids growing up. Not everybody played for the same reasons, and we're approaching it wrong when we go after general audiences instead of those people that we're making. Look, it's like classical music. Okay, just finish with this one. I tell people who try to equate it to pickleball, I said, look, tennis is like great classical music or a great opera singer, and you never ever compare it to rap or jazz. Even jazz or something. It's special, and it's an elite all its own. So I'm so upset about their move to try to combine the racket organizations. They just cheapened it. They dumbed it down. You don't do that. I've been fighting against abbreviated scoring since the 1980s, when they used it for the first time, and I saw what happens to the depth of the game. I mean, instead of playing chess, we're playing checkers. We didn't make it better. We didn't make it more exciting. We dumbed it down. I found 23 reasons why no ad is bad for the sport of tennis. I mean, the hidden reasons. The no ad point, for example, nobody thinks it's like baseball, full count. With one pitch, at a full count, one pitch sat the batter down or put him on first base, would change the whole dynamic of the sport of baseball. Tennis would change the whole dynamic of learning. I mean, we don't. And I finally figured out how to make the sport a little bit more interesting in coaching in college. You first learn to lengthen rallies, then points, then games, then sets, then matches, then tournaments, then seasons, then careers. Well, we took out the ability to lengthen the game and the ability to really, really see the depth of it. Yesterday, let's see, there was a girl was playing on TV. I watched just today. She was playing the American girl, but anyhow, she had 8 set points before she could close it. And the drama, that building, they just cheapened it. So anyhow, I could talk 2 days about this, and I've got a bunch of notes that eventually maybe we'll be able to talk to, but really making it easier does not make it better. But again, it goes back to is it an educational thing or is it an entertainment thing in college? Are we going after the artistic aspects or just the marketing aspects? And to have both of them, I'm not saying that you can't, but you have to be very, very wise at what you're doing. It'd be like an opera singer saying, you know what? I got the best voice in America and I'm not making enough money. I'm going to go to pop. what would we think about that? So,
no, that's so well put. Our game needs a guardian, that's for sure, or guardians. To me, overnight, I mean, the USPTA, I mean, now they're known as Racket Sports, PTR, and I've been a tester, a member for 40 some years of both those organizations. It was like overnight. So the loyalty to the sport is in question. But David, why don't you make a comment and add a question for Chuck?
Yeah, I wrote down a bunch of notes in preparation for this too, and that was, the Back to the Future comment. I think that was made a few years back on the podcast. Chuck hit on it. The impact, tough for me to sell. Hey kids, you need to be cramping up after a fitness workout. And then they go to a tournament and they play a 10-point tiebreaker for a third set. And to me, it's an insult. It's an insult to the people in the sport. And what are your thoughts on? I mean, we know we're lost, right? We've lost our keys, and now we backtrack and identify where we were and try to track them down. But what do you think the chances are that it will circle back, Chuck? And that I don't want to sound like we're talking about the good old days, but I think if you care about tennis, they were definitely better days.
I think, this has come up a lot. I've got a very good friend, Randy Blumendahl, that coaches Lee's McRae College he's coached Indiana University, he's coached all over. He's coached 30 years. He's very smart at pinpointing a problem, identifying the problem, and identifying the situation. I'll go around the circle 15 times before I finally try to figure it out. But probably the primary thing is we don't have a voice anymore. And Steve, thank you very, very much for this podcast, because I know that you've got a great audience. Basically, you've been an educator your whole life. You've never been a marketing. You've been an educator and a teacher and one of the greatest students of the game. And I'm not blowing smoke here. I'm telling, because I've same thing. You got enough skin in the game. But the bottom line on the thing is we don't have voices anymore. We can go to, can't even write articles. The world's changing so fast. We used to read an article, say, wow, this article's great. We move along. People aren't even reading, hardly. Everything's online. Everything is on. I tell my guys, you'd love this, my team, I said, look, everybody's a hero on Facebook. I said, guys, over here at MUSC at the Medical University of South Carolina, there's a doctor over there that saved 150 lives last year of heart surgeries, and he never puts it on Facebook. But the bottom line, we don't have a communication tool that's powerful. Therefore, we have to resort to our leaders of the sport, and they are driven by money, by marketing. Like I'm so mad as a college coach what our college presidents have done to let varsity sports get so out of control. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. I live it every day, watching football and basketball teams with this transfer portal, the money getting paid. We're just making it a marketing thing where the kids, I could talk an hour on this because I've seen it. The kids are learning all the wrong tools to jump ship when things get hard. They're learning how to chase money instead of their sport. It's not they're not student athletes anymore. They're basically, we're turning our kids into marketeers that market their own God-given talents. So anyhow, the bottom line on thing, I'm very upset with our leaders. There's a saying, there's nothing more pathetic than small people in big positions. But once we have a leader that is not going for the educational value of what they're doing and things that are much, much deeper than money, then you're stuck. Once you sell out anything, I don't care, you sell out in a tennis match, you sell out in anything you do, it's a walk you can't go back with. So our leaders are not doing what they're supposed to do. We're not able to get together. We need more forums like what we're doing tonight We need people to write articles. Even though people aren't reading like they used to, and the internet is so powerful, the social media thing. So we've got to figure out what I did. Coach Randy was great. He wants us to get together. We're trying to get together 6 or 7 people and have like a small summit. And we have a place up in the Clemson area. And we're going to try to get 6 or 7 or 8 people together and see what we can do to save junior tennis. Is a mess. Kids don't play for points. They play for tournaments of heritage, and they play for rivalries. We've turned our kids into martinet fame chasers, or they're not chasing the love of the sport. And we've done that with the bait that we put out there with this UTR thing. It's just our leaders are not seeing things straight. But I think our college presidents, our leaders and everything, people are on them to got to make money, got to do this, got to make it famous. And we've lost all of our educational instincts first.
No, it's great to hear. Great to hear Randy's name. I haven't talked to Randy in a number of years, but I know. Richard had players play for him. Jeremy Langer hit the ball so well. Played at Indiana. Go ahead, Richard. Comment, question for Chuck.
So, if we could sort of just zero in a little bit, and Chuck, I'm going to ask you if at the college level, we'll break it down. We'll say early junior development level, junior high school level, college level. So let's do those 3 categories for a minute. If at the college level, what would be the ideal look of college tennis that you would like to see, you envision to be in the best interest of the sport?
Wow. Okay, that's a great question. I could talk for a long time. I don't want to say back when at all. Okay, this is pretty interesting. We just finished about 3 days of preseason practice where we're not on the clock. And I don't want to go into this too much, but it's just a sort of spin-off of what's happened. We now have a clock on us all the time, 20 hours a week. 20 hours a week we're allowed to train to. But we're doing it. And they started this in 1991. And I was in a meeting, ACC conference meeting, and the commissioner is right there. They said, well, we're going to limit all sports 20 hours practice a week. I said, well, how did we come up with this number that's very quite arbitrary? He said, well, we all decided that 20 hours was about what a student athlete could take. I said, whoa. I said, what about your high achievers? I'm sure a musician would be appalled at only being able to practice his violin 20 hours a week, or if he had a number on him. And I said, is this for educational reasons? And the commissioner, I won't name his name, but he goes, yeah, absolutely, it's for educational reasons. And I said, well, why couldn't we, if your team has a 3.1 or 3.2 or 3.4 grade point average, do anything you want? Then you would be rewarding excellence by giving them more time to practice. And he said, well, and I forget exactly, and I even went to the commissioner, the assistant, the vice president of the NCAA at that time was at Clemson, and I went in and had a meeting with him. He said, the politics of this, he says, is so deep. He said, you just don't sort of want to go there. It's a losing battle, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I said, but it doesn't make sense. Why would you dumb down? You don't tell a musician, a piano player, you can only play 20 hours a week. You don't tell the guy in the computer lab, you can only study 20 hours a week. Excellence is excellence. People who love and they made it to where you can practice on your own. In college, then they dumb down the amount of matches. Now, where I want to go with this, I need to be sort of politically correct, not call coaches out. But I got to coach at the time, my first 10 years. If it was 4 hours into practice and the backhands weren't right, I could say, guys, we're going to stay here till we get this right. And guys would get it right. Now we're all running from the clock and there's not the depth taken. centrifugal learning, or what it's not centrifugal force, but learning is like, it's not like a light switch. They say that Thomas Edison never had a clock in his laboratory because curiosity and things have to have, they have to be created and maintained. It's not a light switch. Oh, I'm going to come up with an idea. Oh, I'm going to get my backhand better in this next 20 minutes. This up, time's up. We're done with this learning now. That's not the way it happens. So, first of all, the clocks thing, what happened is the workers would do their work. The lazy people will do theirs. Some people don't need as much. Some people do more, need more. Some people do less. But they basically have taken our freedom away from how we coach and how we teach. They've taken the freedom away, which is terrible. I think it's really killed the love of the sport, because you would see kids who love the sport do all that, and then they would live on a backboard, and they would hit more serves, they would hit extra buckets, they would go running on their own. It wasn't like coaches were forcing them into all this. But the other part of it, the dumbing down of the scoring system, they passed that. The whole thing was a ruse, and I'll say this publicly now, but I'm pretty sure something happened to benefit a quid pro quo or something for our leaders to force feed this through, because I was spearheading against it. Even Randy Blumendahl, myself, and a coach from Michigan State, we were going to create our own coaches association. And first meeting, we had like 35 of us step up, and then pretty much it got squashed out by the ITA Coaches Association, which is, I don't care for at all, because for a lot of different reasons. They fed off of the work of lots and lots of people over the years. But the bottom line on the thing, this was force fed through the coaches. It was not ever voted in. It was scooted in. And then all of a sudden it became something that we had to do. And the bottom line on the thing was, it really has disrupted the sport, because our kids go to tournaments now and they play tiebreakers for the third set, which is terrible, because all of the learning takes place in the third set. That is the difference maker. The no-ad scoring is awful. They're trying, like I said, there's over 20 reasons why you don't do that. The grouping of points, people don't see that. The importance of winning 3 points in a row is incredibly important. If you don't win the first point of the game, you've got to win 3 in a row or 4 out of 5, or you can never be successful in tennis. But there's a psychological factor there that favorite players are comfortable winning 3 in a row, and the underdogs in tennis are not comfortable winning 3 in a row, and it's incredibly important. It's an 8-point swing on game point. People never talk about the 8-point swing at 4-4. If you win that game point on a net court or whatever happens, you only need 4 now. I need 12. It's an 8-point swing, but the first game of the match, it's an 8-point swing. If you get that first game, it's going to take me 8 points to overcome the 1-game lead that I would have had if I had won that game point. So the cheating in junior tennis is through the roof. The code is no longer part of what we do. Nobody talks about the code. Nobody used to cheat. People you'd get cheated, guys, now and then, but no one would ever cheat you on their game point. They would cheat you on your game point to tie it up, but they would never just take a game now and then, or you'd be known as a cheater. We never had to have referees. When my first 10 years of coaching, we never had had referees. You had an honor system, and you played by the code. Now it's really an atmosphere that young kids don't want. But Coach Randy, I didn't want to not get this in. Coach Randy Blumendahl said our whole problem is when we went to the point system, we took a youngster's ability to be the best at his park and then the best at his city, and then the best in his state, then fight to be the best in his section. And there was a normal thing. Now the kids are chasing all over the place, trying to earn points, and it's so arbitrary. It's just so. Anyhow, I've got 15 other reasons why. With too much information for the kids. We just went to a showcase for college coaches and kids, and they put together the UTR, the WTN, state ranking, sectional ranking, national ranking, and I told several people, and they're changing some of it, that you never ever. We have too many rankings on computers all the time because the kids know where they're at all the time. They right away pigeonhole themselves. You or I, when we were at the park as kids, guys, we dreamed of playing at Wimbledon, and it was a dream that we'd stay on that backboard and hit because we didn't know how hard it is. I tell everyone, you keep fog on top of the mountain till the kids are too high up to turn back. You never tell somebody how hard something is at the onset. And we give them information every week. You're ranked 38th in your section right now, and your UTR is a 6.3, and guess what? You have to be a 13 to play in the SEC one day, and guess what? If you don't do, and kids go, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I don't think I could do that. It's so, I'm covering a lot at once, guys. But
No, it's all great. That's great. Just very quickly going back, like say with backboards, you mentioned time. Unfortunately, backboards aren't being built now. I do think with parents, they're paying more money. The kids are paying less. When you talk about time, kids doing baskets, I think, the art of shaking hands and a young junior player greeting Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, Dr. So-and-so, that's gone away. I'm always telling, college tennis coaches have it so tough. They inherit kids that played 10 years of doubles the wrong way. Yeah, you say so many great things like pattern play. But go ahead, David.
Well, I mean, I kind of want to have Chuck repeat what he just said. That was awesome. And the third set, the scoring system. Another thing that I kind of gets me nauseated is nationals being 256 draws, and I loved it back in Texas through a lot of my time here where kids had to play sectionals. Now they don't even call it sectionals, but they call it the slam. In our facility, you're not allowed to call it the slam. It's still referred to as sectionals. But around the U.S., a lot of kids don't play sectionals, and that used to be such just a source of pride, like you were saying. Be the best in your city, best in your state, and then to try to win sectionals and get down in the Texas Tennis Association record book as the 14th.
Yes.
And then so now they did away with that. You used to have to play sectionals when, players like Michael Westbrooks and people who you remember when you were coaching against him at Clemson. And, the draws being 256 and this flood and these kids that are so ill-equipped playing what are deemed L1 nationals now. I think the whole, you touched on it, the governing body of tennis, the people looking after letting people in and out of the gate, they've been a major catalyst in taking this thing the wrong way. Yeah. And any thoughts on how we can, any thoughts on what the people that are in our position can do to break that down a little?
Well, it's real quick. A squeaky wheel gets the oil. If it squeaks too loud, it gets removed. My mama used to say, And the thing is, we've got to talk about it and educate people. What you say is right on. We have had a tournament in South Carolina, Belton. It was a small town close, about 20 miles from Clemson. It used to be an 8-day event. If you ask any child in the state of South Carolina, would they rather be ranked number one in the state or win Belton? Not even close. If you ask any boy in the United States, would he rather be ranked number one in the United States or win Kalamazoo? He said, win Kalamazoo. Kalamazoo winner. And they're thinking probably they're going to end up taking that tournament, changing it. They'll change it to an L1 Superstar Blue Group YMCA or something. You know, if you ask any player in the world, would you rather be a Wimbledon champion or be number one in the world? It's not even close. So kids play for titles, like you're saying. Peach State in Georgia. We used to tournaments of heritage. Tim Wilkinson, I give him credit. He was the one that said this about 5 or 6 years ago. I was at a junior tournament, and he said, you know, kids don't play for the points. They play for tournaments of heritage and for rivalries. He said, if I lost to somebody, it would take me a year to play him again. I practiced every day. I never wanted to lose again. I had Chucky Willenborg was one of the best clay court players in the country, the Willenborg boys from Florida, Blaine and Chucky. Chucky, he said, when he was 12 years old, I had him on an interview one time. He said, when I was 12 years old, I lost to John Ross 6-0, 6-0, and John Ross ended up being a great player. He said, I put his picture on the bathroom mirror. And he said, I worked every day. He said, the next time I played him, he said, I lost, but it was nearly a 3-hour match. And he said, that's why we played. Now kids are defaulting out of back draws because they might take a loss and it might hurt their UTR. You know, it's disgusting. We have kids chasing money. We have our high school kids, college kids chasing money instead of learning their crafts. We have tennis players, like you're saying, they're chasing points. We've got to change this back, and whatever it takes. I was on the national committee for junior tournaments, and I fought very hard for 2 years to eliminate the third set tiebreaker, and all of the reasons why it's so damaging to the kids. If you win the first set right now, the other guy has to win in a 2 out of 3 set match, has to win 48 points. If you think about it, in a tiebreaker for the third set, you only have to win 24. But guess what? I got to win 24. He only has to win 24, and he's tied. Whoa, wait a minute. I actually at practice, people argue on time. I do a thing called an icebreaker sometimes. I had a coach, a high school coach in Cookeville, Tennessee, taught me this. He said that, Brian, Coach Brian there, he said that if you're going to play a tiebreaker, it's going to count a whole set, play it the first set. That way the better player always going to win. You do an icebreaker if you have to. And I've done that at practice where I can start 3-3 the first set, full set for the second, full set for the third. But that full set for the third determines who's supposed to win. Now, guys, I don't want to leave this out because it could be part of our whole discussion. Why this was not done for the good of the kids. It was not done. I really believe in sports. I'm in college sports. I really believe that the gambling industry has a huge thrust on what's going on in collegiate athletics. And I hope this doesn't come after me or something for saying this, but the bottom line on the thing is that if you think about parity that they've created automatically through the transfer portal, think about the parity in the transfer portal. A team like Florida State can win the ACC and 16 transfer players, then win the ACC. Then the very next year, they have a terrible year. All these teams pop up from nowhere because players are being jockeyed around. Now, why would they do that? Is that only for the welfare of the athlete? Let them jump ship? It's completely disrupted the recruiting cycle for high school kids. Forever, kids were recruited high school first, junior college second. Now and then you would have a transfer that had to sit out a year. If they wanted to transfer and they'd sit out a year, then they got a year's growth. That's okay. Now transfers are first, junior college kids are second, high school kids are third. Guys, there were 4,700 kids in the baseball transfer portal last year. There's tons of kids that are in that transfer portal, and they're jumping ship. Now, are we doing this for the welfare of the kids, just so that kids can go to their favorite school and market themselves? You know, if you think about it, things are being done for parity. Parity pays the house. You know, so, you know, in collegiate tennis, you know, tennis is the second most gambled on sport in the world. You know, it's because online, people can go online. We've got, what's that, DraftKings or whatever? They sponsor all the doggone Wimbledon and everything. You got Wimbledon, you know. Then you got DraftKings. Oh, by the way, you know, be responsible when you do this. You know? I mean, yeah. and it's I hate to say it, it's sad. But we're doing this with our collegiate sports. And every sport is being dumbed down. I even heard golf, they were thinking about making the hole in golf as big as a pie plate. And if they did that, then you'd have about 53 people. Think about on Sunday, the finals, you'd have 53 people still in running. Who would that benefit? You know, so making things easier does not make it better. So I got off on a little bit of a tangent there, guys, but the scoring system is sacred. It's been over 150 years, and this is this important statement. If our greatest players, Stan Smith, Rod Laver, Chris Evert, all these, they got together and they all said, we're going to change the scoring system. We would think, well, that arrogance, how do they come, what gives them the right to change something after 150 years? Well, we're allowing marketeers to change our sport. And it's really, I think it's time for our leaders to step up and say, no, this is sacred. You're not changing classical music into pop music. You're not changing fine art into paint by numbers.
No, that's so well put. I think change, I mean, the point is to change back. Chuck, you got Richard excited. Richard plays golf. His daughter had a golf scholarship. Hernandez, your golf score would go better if they were putting into a plate, the whole size of a plate. But go ahead, Richard. What do you got for Chuck?
So, Coach, if you talk about heritage in our game, and you talk about you know, classic events that in years gone by. If you had to sort of look at the scenarios where, say, the slams, because I heard you speak about high school basketball, Indiana, having 600 plus teams enter into state championships at some point. But if we were to take, what are your thoughts on if we were to garner some sort of energy around the slams being completely open? In other words, you instead of having just a Wimbledon qualifier at Roehampton, you could possibly have sectional qualifiers around the world, much like the British Open does, much like the US Open does in golf. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. There's a saying that when you champion the weak, you weaken the real champions. The Indiana basketball thing that you brought up is really a sore spot. No one understands that, yeah, there were 600 teams in the same tournament. And if you won the state championship, there are places, Elwood, Indiana has a sign, winners of the 1953 state high school basketball championship. Now you go into somebody's gym and they have state champions, Group A, 4A, private schools. You have 15 state champions, you know, and it's really, really wrong. And perhaps in football, where you have size limitations. But in the sport of tennis and skill sports, when you champion a week, you weaken real champions. You must finish tournaments out. You know, the way they run the tournaments, they don't do it. Losing is supposed to hurt. Winning is supposed to be a real great thing. But what your idea is brilliant, and that would motivate thousands of people, I think, to play. I'm playing in the Wimbledon or the U.S. Open pre-qualifier. And then you go in your section, and you go into your state, and you go into a bigger one. Hey, Joe just got invited up to Chicago to play in the final qualifying round for the. That would be something that would really, really be fantastic. Our junior tennis system was brilliant, I think, up until the points and became introduced. I think they only did that because of computer guys to keep score a little bit more, you know, and it really hurt the way that it has to be done in a 256 draw. No, it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that many people. They only did that to make it a. You know, again, you have 15 valedictorians. 15 people get to say they're a valedictorian. You don't really have one. So I think that would be that's a great idea. And
well, they gave that a go. Remember, 10 plus years ago for the U.S. Open, but they only gave it a two year span.
I didn't remember that. How does that work?
Yeah, they only gave it was exactly what Richard just described. They you could play, you know, throughout some of the major metropolitan areas. They had U.S. Open, you know, it was like you said, pre, and then you went on to a regional, and then whoever won the whole thing at the end got a spot in got a wild card into the qualies.
Jesse Witten, who played,
it might have been.
I think he's from Naples. He played at Kentucky. He climbed and had it was a good story at the U.S. Open when that happened.
Yeah, but it was a really short amount of years. I don't even know if 2 years. I remember. But the concept was solid. I don't know why they went away with it. It just came and went.
No, I think
go
ahead, Chuck.
Well, I was going to say, you know, at our park championship, right here locally, I live in a small town called Somerville, South Carolina, or Charleston area. But we need to have a city tournament. I'm talking to the lady who runs it, and she's wonderful. But to run a city championship, men's city championship, any age, wide open. That's another thing. The UTR has segregated everybody by age, and that's or by level. That's wrong. Age and level is wrong. It needs to be open. You guys remember your first win over somebody who went to college, your son's first win over the top man at the park when you were a kid, and things. Those are very, very important things.
Well, one thing that's gone away is ladders. A public ladder, you just show up with a can of balls, and the winner gets to walk away with a new can of balls. Loser gets the balls that you played with, and that's another way to make tennis less expensive. But I think just like backboards don't make money, walls don't make money, and kids are programmed out. One thing, a phrase that we use often is, unfortunately, the individuals become bigger than the program. What do you think could be done to rejuvenate high school tennis? Seems like now the kids at homeschool, I mean, their parents are taxpayers. They can actually play high school tennis. What are your thoughts on that, Chuck? Where high school tennis is?
Okay, good. I've been on this too, trying to change. My daughter actually still plays high school tennis. I've got a 17-year-old, and she likes the sport, but hasn't gotten hooked on it, and hasn't fallen in love with it. Wonderful athlete. And here's the thing that they do wrong. Texas maybe has the best high school association. In college, this was Randy Blumenthal's idea also. This year was the first I had one get sidetracked. It was the first year they went to individual championship in the fall, team championship in the spring. But 10 years ago, when tried to Division D1 college association, we're trying to establish. he said, that we need to make all of our team tennis that they want to experiment with. Look, tennis is an individual sport with team opportunities. It is not a team sport by design. It's an individual sport. It's like track and field or like golf or like swimming. These are individual sports with team opportunities. Okay, so he said you need to do the team in the fall. In Texas, that's what they do. They do the team in the fall, and you can play on a boys or girls team sport, team tennis. And in the spring, they have individual tournaments. Now, his idea was to have a 10-week season in the fall, and then finish by Thanksgiving. And you could do no ad scoring. You could do, whatever you wanted to do, the hula hoop. You could do anything you wanted to do to try to attract crowds to that team event in the fall. You play on the football weekends. I play on a Friday night when you have football crowds, and Sunday afternoon for the diehard tennis people that stay over. So you would do that. You would get your crowds there. Then, and starting in the winter, you would start with a clay court collegiate event, and you'd have an indoor collegiate event, and by February, you'd have an outdoor collegiate event in March or April. Then the NCAA should have the Grand Slam of college tennis. Then you would build your satellite events around those events, and then people would springboard, your youngsters, young men, young women, would springboard into the summer ready to play at higher levels of pro tennis, maybe in entry-level pro tennis in the summertime. Right now, we go all fall with this tournament, and I could go forever about the amount, what's happening. All of the college coaches are playing 6 or 7 pro tournaments and then only playing the NCAA events. The college events are not there. Basically, people are using satellite events in the fall with their college players. Some people are just signing up for that, and then they try to win the NCAA singles. Then in the spring, what we do, we go indoors, then outdoors, and it's really, really by May, they're heading the tracks, and then they limp into the summer, and by mid-July, they're maybe ready to play again. In high school, down in Texas, they play the team again in the fall, individuals in the spring. You could play both or one of them, and if you have a youngster, he plays team football in the fall, and then he happens to be the best player in the state also. He plays individual tournaments in the spring. You're able to do those things, and I think that's the very best. But above all, never play no ad scoring with our high school kids. They were playing high school no ad scoring and tiebreaker for the third set here in the state of South Carolina. And one lady really worked. She's from Columbia, South Carolina, worked forever to get this changed back. And now the high school kids are finally playing real tennis in the spring, with the scoring system.
Oh, that's great.
So high school tennis is a very, very big component, but I think the format could make it one of the very, very strong where all of your best players would want to play too. But then you need tournament tennis in order to make that happen.
Chuck, obviously with your career, there's times that you've been at the Brookhaven facility in Dallas. David's been there 30 years. Actually, all three of us, David, Richard, and I, had ties to Texas tennis because we all met in Tyler, Texas. But David, why didn't you pick it up from there on high school tennis in Texas?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it kind of go backward. It used to be a pretty significant thing, Steve, as you know, Richard, Chuck. It like everything else, there used to be a sense of pride to being Texas high school state champion, and I think that the format Texas high schools use is solid. I think that the culture that has been gradually building, that's really caught a lot of momentum over the past 20 years, 25 years, is going to make anything hard to work. I think that kids get too cool for school. And there was a great event here in Texas where the best players in Dallas would play against the best players in Houston. It was called the McKinley Cup, named after Chuck McKinley. And it was, when I got to Dallas 31 and a half years ago, it was like to get picked out of your city to play the McKinley Cup was huge. And then I remember about 10 years in, one of the better players, that was representing Houston, and a similar thing for Dallas. They opted out, and it was just kind of like a shock, that somebody quit doing it. And then we watched that event die a slow death. And high school tennis is such a great avenue for so many people, but between, I think, people thinking they're way better than they are before they are even close to getting that good, and the online schooling and all these other factors, I think it's needing some CPR right now.
Go ahead, Chuck.
No, absolutely. And once again, look, it's no doubt that the culture has changed. Our kids are going, this AI stuff that's coming in is really frightening to me, because it looks like kids are going to be able to get answers to things without sweating to get them, without the process. Without the process, it doesn't matter what you accomplish. The AI thing, if it makes easier to pick up, becomes easier to put down. The value comes, we all know this, the value comes from the hard work. The frightening thing, when someone talks to me as a college coach about the transfer portal, and it's even happening in tennis and what they're doing now. I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but they've eliminated walk-ons in sports pretty much at D1 levels. And at every D2 in smaller schools, small D1s, if they did that, they go out of business, because they very much rely on opportunities to walk on. There's hundreds of kids that play sports as walk-ons. But the bottom line on this, with the transfer portal, people don't understand the fallout is really with the young person. Everything, and I talked about this briefly at the start today, they don't understand that they go through a process of failing at first, and then you have to work hard. Where I work right now is it's called, and it's fantastic, because as a freshman, you come in and they don't care whether you are, who you are, what you've got, who the parents were, anything. They all go through the same process. And they, I don't want to say break down and build up. They basically start at point zero, and then you just see the evolution. What happens after one semester of this, where they gain their bearings and they finally get over the fear, and they have to go through these black doors of it being uncomfortable. Then they get a hold of themselves, and then by the time they're sophomores, they put them in leadership positions, and they start leading, some well, some not so well, some being wise, other kids having learned. By the time they're seniors, those guys, juniors and seniors, you couldn't pry them out of there, because they're so proud of the work that they have done. And what happens to our kids now, as a freshman, they go and they're having a hard time. I'm not the high school, I'm not the hero in there as a quarterback. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump ship. I can go over here, and by the way, they gave me $180,000. They gave me $1 million. But they gave me this, and hey, wait a minute, I deserve this. I deserve this. Don't I deserve it? The school gets it. The coaches get it. Why don't I deserve it? And it's just, okay, no one understands it. For people listening to this, look, if you are a full scholarship athlete in college, the very least, I figured out at our school, if you're on full scholarship, you make $125 an hour to play football. Or if you're on a full tennis scholarship, you make $125 an hour. If it's out of state, it's $60,000. If you divide that into 480 hours per year, you get to practice. 20 hours a week times 24 weeks is what you get to practice. You divide that, you get $125 an hour. Well, that's the very least. They spend thousands of dollars for these young people, thousands of dollars. And now it's like, hey, I got to get mine. So you know what happens, guys. By the time you're 25, you're running out of money. By the time you're 30, the gravy train pulls out of town if you're not a hard worker and you don't have good habits and you don't work through things. By the time you're 35, you got maybe 40 years to work yet. And you're going, whoa, wait a minute. And it just reinforces all the wrong things. And again, our leaders need to step up and say, wait a minute, what are we doing to our young people here? And, and so it's all a marketing process. And the dirty little thing that's going to happen that no one understands about it, guys, is that in collegiate football, for example, pretty soon I'm watching, I said, whoa, wait a minute, I don't know this guy. This guy was at 3 different schools before. I don't know who he is. This is like a free agency or, a trade deal. Who is this guy? And you don't have any interest. And, well, wait a minute, I got something better to do. We fall in love with sports or musicians or whatever because of the journey that they've made. With young people, the young people need to understand that journey as well. And so, again, it goes back on our leaders. And we've got to, what do we do? That's the question, guys. What do we do? We've got to speak out. We got to stand up and speak out.
That's so well put about AI. I've never heard that. Just making it easier. When you make it easier, you make it worse. The other thing I've never heard the tennis broken down to the hourly fee. What people do, if you break it down to how much they're being paid per hour. What a great opportunity. Richard,
Coach Scarpa used to do that with kids. When kids only got like a fifth of a scholarship, he'd bring them into the office. He would say, he'd send them down and say, okay, let me tell you what here. All right, let me show you. And he would pull out his notepad and he showed me what he did. He said, okay, it's $50,000 to go to Furman here, and here's what you would make at McDonald's. He said, here's what you would make. You'd make here. You're getting $10,000 to play tennis at now to help you with your education. But so people don't understand that. People know the price for everything, but the value of very little. Bill Tim made that statement to me at the National Indoors in Dallas many years ago. He said, people know the cost for everything, but the value of very little.
The comment would have been made at the facility that David works at. With last time you were on our podcast, you remember Brandon Flanagan, one of our students, was on with you, and I was asking the questions, and you two guys did a contest on who could imitate Coach Scarpa. That was awesome.
Yoda, he's the Yoda of college tennis. He was the wise Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he was the one that had the solutions, and you just had to sit down and say, what do you think? And he'd say in a few words, and you go, whoa.
That's key to have solutions.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Richard. Shout from up north. What do you got?
Well, so let's take it in a different direction, Coach, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know you touched on that a little bit in the last podcast, you see. Parenting. So, yeah, sport parenting. And I'm going to ask a loaded question insofar as your opinion on success potential success with young people and parenting. When, in your experience, relationship between husband and wife and success of a young athlete, what's the correlation, you think, that solidifies, or at least gives that chance, a greater chance for that athlete to become good at what they're doing? And when I say relationship, I'm talking about, commonality, principle, things like that. Yeah. So what are your thoughts?
Thanks for that question. That's, I've had several situations where parents have asked me about, the motivation of the young people. And and you all remember, and some of the Oedipus complex or whatever it is, where the father has more influence over the daughter and the mother has more over the son. But there's a couple of things that I've tried to follow, and I don't want to not answer your question the right way here. One is I've noticed that the for girls, okay, for boys, because I've coached them the most. I did get to coach women for 2 years a lot, but with the boys, all of my successful boys, the most successful were the lone or the baby male of the family. Very seldom the oldest son was successful because the oldest son had he's the one who has to carry the flag. He is the one who has to carry the flag and be the role model. And if he has a dominant dad, if he has a choleric or a controlling father, it almost never works. Now and then, maybe, but almost not. The lone or the baby male of the family, the best players I've ever had, are usually those that sort of learn on the way. They're not afraid of taking risks. They're not afraid of living on the edge a little bit. They're not afraid of making mistakes. I always say this. I have 4 sons, but my oldest son, when he came to camp as a 10-year-old, one day, when he would go to my camp, we'd have the kids make out goal-setting sheets the first week, the first day, and he put down. He goes, here was his 3 goals. He said, don't make mistakes, don't hit balls over the fence, don't embarrass dad. I said, whoa, you're going to have a great time at camp, son. And and that was just but with girls, it's really interesting that the eldest girl is almost always the person in a family that does the best. And the oldest girl, we had a young lady at College Park, Maryland. I worked 3.5 years up there after I came back from Thailand. And we had a girl, she's brilliant, left-handed, strong, mover, hit the ball great. And my friend worked up there. He's one of the pros. And we took her to breakfast or lunch, I think, and we want to talk to her about, listen, get your stuff together here, work a little bit harder. You're going to be great at this. And there's going to be a goal-setting sheet. We started with this, and he said, what? She goes, whoa, wait a minute, guys. She says, I am not an alpha girl. She says, I don't like this. He says, I don't want. She says, when we play a girl, each one of us try to bully the other one down. I am not an alpha girl. And it's really interesting like that. But as far as parents, getting back to your question, for parenting, usually the father has more success with the daughter, and then the mother has more success with the boy, because the mother is not threatening to the boy's growth, as a man, and vice versa, and she can say, I know my wife with my son, she can just cut him to bits, and then he gets the message, and then he walks out and goes, whoa, okay, mom had a day, but it doesn't dent him. For a father to do that with his son, it really, really leaves a wound, a scar. There's what is that book I read? It was so good about the boy's relationship with his father, and how important it is. But with his daughter, I had a girl at College Park whose mom was doing the heavy lifting, and it just wasn't working. The father took over, and the girl became one of the top players in the country. So that is, but getting around to parenting the athlete. Everybody knows some of the basic things that you do. We used to pass out a form. Professor Ponta, who's a brilliant man and a wonderful, wonderful leader of young people. I loved being able to work by his side. 3.5 years, I learned so much. But one thing that he would do is, we'd have sheets of things that we passed out to a little bit about simple parenting things, like you don't ever give them a 1 hour cool down period before you even say a word to them when they're done. Okay? Make sure if you talk to the coach, you talk to the coach in a way that just for information, don't try to have impact or influence them. It was really, really good. I think that's extremely important with the parenting part of the thing. So I've thrown out a lot there. It's a big bunch of stuff, but the parents are an important factor. Now I've done this long enough. I tell all parents, call me anytime you want. I'll give you straight up stuff. And I'm old enough now. I think that they just think, well, he's over the hill here anyway. He doesn't know what he's talking about, or hey, and there's not many arguments. But if parents try to step over the boundaries, I'll tell them, look, we're not going to go there. I'm not going to talk about how we're teaching a forehand. We'll teach about the welfare of your son. But not, we've got to talk about this. I'll explain to you what I'm doing, but you need to understand this.
I've always been a firm believer the attitude of the household, creates so much, and is often the biggest factor in helping us as coaches try to get kids down the road. I love what you just said about we're not going to talk about the forehand, but we're happy to talk about some other things. I always tell parents they have the toughest job, right? Manage their academics, make sure the food they're putting in the cupboards is good food, get the kids on proper sleep habits, and teaching them how to navigate life. And then as far as we can help that process along, but as far as the forehands and backhands, let us cover that. But yeah, I had another question on a side topic, just kind of a philosophical question with, the way money's changed, and back in your earlier days of college coaching when men got more scholarship at the Division I level, et cetera. If you had a son right now, Chuck, that was, top 75 in the country, and you had limited resources in terms of finances to put him through college, what would you do right now, given the changes that may be taking place with JUCO and then the 5-year thing? And what route would you go to basically not have any debt leaving college?
Okay, so there's two things. The big thing to understand is that very, very, very few of these kids are going to make it through college and be to the pros. So what you're after is the best learning environment you could ever hope to. My son is in baseball, and that's quite an interesting thing. I even after all the years of coaching, I was a first grader as far as learning about the different things about baseball and what's going on. But all I have ever hoped for, and I tell the parents this too, is that collegiate athletics in its best form is absolutely the best educational tool for life that you could ever have, because the difference between classroom and sports is that in sports you have to make immediate decisions of integrity, you have to make immediate decisions of right and wrong, you have to respond to problems, you have to do all these things that you have to think on your feet. And then along with that, you have a safe environment to experience failure or great success, that it's a great environment that is shared by others. The biggest thing I tell the guys that I don't pass this on like every day or something, but my motivation for coaching is that for when things go well in a group of people, experience what happens when you work hard and sweat and labor for a goal and you achieve it, it's a life-changing thing. Not that you're remembered for something, but you never again fear diving into the fire or diving into the deeper water. That's a better way to put it. Diving into the deeper water. So with the scholarship, to answer your question, I look at it completely. I break down, like how much it costs to go to school. If you're paying $60,000 a year, you like guys are like this. Well, it's 30 weeks a year. That's $2,000 a week. By 5 days, it's $400 a day. So if you take $400 a day and then you go to 4 classes, you're paying $100 an hour to go to school, right? So I tell the guys, but you'll love it. So about cutting class, you can't cut class at Citadel. That's one thing. But as far as cutting classes, I sort of told my son this. I said, son, every time you go into class, it's like, you get your billfold out here and you pull out $60 or $80. Say, Professor, here's the money for my lecture. Please give us a great one today. I'm going to sit on the front row, listen to everything you say, because kids don't understand that completely. But it is completely worth it to me. I'll go bankrupt if I need to for my children to have an opportunity for a great education. The scholarships are there. They're very rare now. If you wanted to talk about that, I told a group in this, if you're really at the Power 5 conferences, if you're not top 35 in the United States, you're not going to get a scholarship now. Those Power 5 conferences, because it's 80% to 100% international students. And we could talk forever on that one, but I'm not against international students because of the great, look at Harry Hopman, who gave me a start, with Dennis Van, American people. But the bottom line on the thing is every seat at the table is being taken by international students now, just about. And you only have so many seats at the table. Your youngsters we need to try to do something in our country to at least put some type of a quota. They had one in junior college back when I first started. They only were allowed 2 per team. It's nothing against international kids, but I think we need to go to the coaches first. I actually called the USDA, Tim Cass. He's dropped out now, a USDA thing, but he used to do the college thing. I called him up and said, Tim, here's what we could do. Let's be proactive on this. Let's reward coaches who have mainly American kids. First of all, let's have an all-American team. Like Kodak used to have USDA could have a all-American team. And you have all-Americans. Here are our top all-American. And I said, USDA could do that. Nobody'd look down on it. And I said, Kodak used to do the All-Americans on TV for football. Remember the Bob Hope show and Kodak? Mm-hmm. So that would date ourselves. Well, I said, the other thing that we need to do for Americans to get more scholarships is, why don't we reward the coaches? And why don't we, come out with a standard, the very best job coaching that has 80% Americans or more on the team. We're going to giving you a $100,000 stipend. We're going to pull out $1 million out of our budget, a big budget that we got here, and give you $100,000 for your program. Then when I sit down to the crew, I'm going to look at this guy or this guy. And so anyhow, our scholarships are very, very, there's not many out there at all.
Yeah. There's
not many. It's tough. And but going to college is still the best thing you could ever do.
Yeah,
it's
I like the line where so many tennis kids are spoiled that they all have a 10-digit scholarship. They just call home, Mom, I need money. Dad, I need money. Richard, comments and questions for Chuck?
Well, I just want to expand a little bit on the value of college tennis, and we talk about the scholarship. That's on the surface. But one of the equations I use, and I got this number from Coach Getz, Dave Getz when he was in Minnesota. Then he went to New Mexico. Oh, sorry. Yeah, New Mexico, or vice versa. But anyway, they did a study, I think, at Minnesota. The actual the dollar value into a collegiate athlete, when you take into account the capital cost, insurance, ancillary support, things like that, was about $125,000 per student athlete. You take into account coaches' salaries, all that, all the costs related. And so in Canada, when a student received any number, didn't matter. I always made them realize that the value of education was greater than the $125,000 a year, because our tax system up here, to equate an opportunity like that, you had to make, $250,000. And so you multiply that over 4 years, that's $1 million exchange, plus the exchange rate. So it's actually greater than that. So, in terms of value, it really is a substantial number, greater than the actual scholarship money that they receive. That's on the surface, but the value to the time spent training, the facilities, the trainers, there's tremendous value in college tennis. And, there's a sports writer up here, Tom Tebbett, the Globe and Mail. And in argument, we had a sort of a very, very casual discussion over dinner one time. And that's the argument I made. I said that if Canadian players got the opportunity to play college tennis, they should just jump at it, because that's the way forward for Canadian tennis. Is that I believe that you've got your junior development, and you've got your collegiate development, and then there's a possibility you're going to play beyond that, given that you've had 4 to 5 years of additional time developing your game at college level. And then you're going to get, an opportunity for more players to at least venture into pro tennis, if not coaching with experience, right? So I know my argument was that if more players ended up playing college tennis, that'd be the best thing for Canadian tennis, because we've got to produce more players at that level. Therefore, produce more coaches, produce more players, etc. And that's where there's value, and the value is exponential. I can't put a number to it. It's so big. So I appreciate what you said.
Go ahead, Chuck.
No, I was going to ask you, the cell phones and everything, we talked briefly about that, about the kids' motivation. They just want to be excellent at things. We've got the motivation, for scholarships, motivation for, but it is the curiosity, the hunger of an inquisitive mind. I keep going back to this cell phone thing. I'm so afraid of the AI and everything, because the kids are less hungry, aren't they? I mean, and probably, I guess, Canada as well. Probably it seems that one of any of the coaches that have primarily international students, most of them say that, most of the international kids that come in are hungrier than our American kids. A lot of our American kids have already done a lot, and they're not chasing down excellence as much. They don't recognize it as much. I mean, you've got people everywhere that are unique and will, but in general, I think our American kids are really quite different now, that they're not chasing down excellence. So I think it's quite interesting to see. That is the thing that most coaches and a lot of our coaches now are international coaches, because a lot of the American former players are not going into coaching. So I'm wondering if there's something that's affecting that as well, because international kids, for the most part, might be hungrier in some ways than our American kids. Would you agree? Or
No, for sure. I spent a lot of time in tennis Europe. You start up the Scandinavian countries and you go down the Benelux countries, and when you look at the draw sheets, the kids from Serbia or Romania, Bulgaria. You get into, we're talking about Don Meyer last week, the former basketball coach, the late Don Meyer. Biblical teaching, when you have less, you have more. The more we give our kids, the weaker they become. How about Chuck, with the kids over, you've almost 50 years in college tennis. We talk about parenting, and it could be teachers, administrators. Coming back to being at the Citadel, and I know you were always a fan of taking your Clemson teams to West Point. Could you comment on the culture you experience in Citadel day to day?
Well, I was, like I said, I was down talking about West Point. We ought to talk about Jim Poling a little bit. That was horrible.
Yeah,
Jim was
great guy,
great guy, great coach. I met him back in probably 5 years into coaching, early 80s, and he had gone to Clemson back in 1969. I was on the national championship team. The conference championship team they had. And, he coached at, like 4 different places, and was just, he just was a coach. And, we used to have the greatest time talking about it. His last 20 years, or 25 years at West Point, then he was retired and then joined, retirement in Boise, Idaho, and he just had a freak accident. And, it was horrible. We're starting to lose some wonderful, wonderful people like that.
Yeah, it was a mountain biker hit him while he was hiking, right?
Yeah, I guess he was hiking, and they said a mountain biker hit him and fell over and hit his head, and they thought he was okay, and then he passed away. But fantastic man.
I was honored. One spring break, his tennis team hung out with us in Tampa, Florida. But yeah, I think that discipline, that yes sir, no sir, and that respecting authority has gone away.
Right. Well, there's good things and bad things, but I was done with the college coaching. I did 33 years. I always said 10 to 11,000 days of practices and everything, and I felt like I was only giving 100% of the 80% I had left. I was only getting 80% out of the guys, and 640 out of 1,000. That's not. It wasn't going to get it done, and so I was done with it. I was just going to, I did the thing in Thailand, the College Park. I was just going to do camps and summertime, try to spend as much time with my kids as I could and just teach kids I wanted to teach. Anyhow, the Citadel opened, and I jumped at the chance because I always tell people you don't have to worry about people hungover on the weekends or football weekends and stuff like that, and things that the discipline. Well, all they do is rein the kids in somewhat. It's fantastic. Like I said, I already talked about it, but you don't have to mess with the stupid stuff that your normal college age kids get into when they experience freedom to the level they do when they first go off to college. And then, but the big payoff is what they learn as far as this is the way I put it to parents, and this is very, very unique, and I don't think it's controversial in any way. But I tell parents when they come in what the Citadel does or what that military training does is that, in our culture, everybody is very aware. They want to be the diversity on the outside. Everybody on the outside, they want to be different, but on the inside, people often become very threatened when you're not exactly like them. They we fight for uniqueness on the outside, but on the inside, we try to be just like somebody else. Well, I said, with the training your youngster will get, On the outside, they learn chain of command for life. They learn you don't go forward without time or merit or hard work. You don't go forward. And that's what you end up with. But on the inside, you become completely unique, diverse, 1 out of 8 billion. You are unique as a leader, as a person, the way you do things. It must be done, though, on this chain of command of life where you don't get things you haven't earned. And it's a fantastic, fantastic way that these kids come out, and it's a beautiful thing. If you ever get a chance to witness West Point or Naval Academy, my daughter wanted to go to Naval Academy very badly, and Chris
Garner.
Garner is at Naval Academy, and you need to have him on sometime. He's had an extremely unique tennis career. He was one of the best players in the country, if not the best player in the country. Then he went, off to college. He went to Georgia and had a great career. He was a great junior player, and then he played some pros, and he was an assistant coach at some different places. But he was the first guy when I left Clemson I put down. First guy that I'd hope they would try to get him. I called him actually. I think so much of him, and then he went to Amherst, and and he was loving it at Amherst College, coaching at that level and just pure coaching. And now he's at the Naval Academy, and he's got, I think both of his sons ended up going there, but just top flight, and so.
Yeah, one thing to interrupt. So he joined forces with Ty Tucker at Ohio State, got his degree because when he played at Georgia, I think he was just there 1 year. I think he's from New York. He went to Bolletari's. He brought his kids to me when they were much younger, but he wins. But one thing about the comment you made, pure coaching, when he was at Amherst, obviously that's D3 level, no scholarships. I think, I have to get our fact checker on this, but I think he was in the finals 5 times. So he did amazing things at Amherst. But yeah, that's great to get Chris on. He gets people to win. I know that.
He does what he does. They say the great man, the wise man. It's a great quote. You had mentioned it is true. I remember everything. You remember everything your parents told you later. But my mother used to say, "The wise man walks with the great and the small in equal dignity," and that's that's what you noticed in the Paul Scarpas and the Chris Garners and the people. Pollings, they're people that you remember in your entire life because of the way they're just the same with the great and the small.
Yeah, you use the word memory. Let me do this for some fun. Snakes. There's a high road and a low road, and unless there's tons and tons of rain, usually the snakes are down low. And there are a lot of great people in tennis, but there's some snakes out there that are just they're not in it for the good of the game. But you mentioned Thailand. Tell our listeners, I should say, the story of the snakes and the cobras. The snakes. Tell us the story about the cobras. Cobras are snakes.
But the baby cobras under the washing machine.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I could preface it with a line. I'll tell you to quit. Our neighbor next door, apparently, the woman had 2 baby cobras in a sort of type of nest underneath her washing machine because they washed clothes outside. The washing machine was outside and things. And this guy, she called up what she thought was the exterminator. The guy comes over. He has gloves on. He picks up both of baby snakes, just throws them over the fence. The cult, they won't hurt a bug, so they don't, they're very respectful of any living thing, and that's the best way to say it. But my wife and I, we had a real nice place to live, and it was a great situation. We just had I would probably not ever do it again. I had to do it at that time to decompress. It was perfect. A couple of years I had, but my wife and I, we learned, so much. But the best thing about it was the fact that you had to just learn on the fly and do the best you could with everything in front of you. But so that was the adversity in this stuff is only adverse when you're not quite familiar with it, I think. But that was an eye opener.
My late mother gave me snake phobia. I don't know if I could live where there's cobras in the house. I mean,
yeah, that there's but my friend over there who's American, we were at a tournament at the main site. We saw about 6 workers run down. They had rakes, and they were run down. They were behind a tennis court, and they were raking like things, and they pulled out about a 30-foot python that was back behind the tennis court. They took it over and threw it into the woods. And my friend said, the thing is, there's so many snakes you can't see them. So my wife, we bought a golden retriever Scout, and Scout we had around the kids, believe me, nonstop all the time, and we'd hope that he'd keep it out. We never had the kids out, but it was a wonderful, wonderful time we had, and people were just so kind. You don't have a lot of the petty stuff going on, but it was great.
Yeah. With I remember that young gal you had. I think she won Junior Wimbledon, didn't she?
Yeah, she won. She did great. A lot of people had worked with her and handed off. My job was to try to build up the communication. They did seminars in different countries. Did coaching seminars and things, 7 of the countries over there, and then we created a training center for Southeast Asia in Bangkok. And the girl I brought her to you to work on her serve. Her serve was the bugaboo thing, and I brought her when she over to some tournaments over in Florida, and I brought her down for you to work with her. But she won 4 grands. She won Wimbledon singles and doubles, and then 3 other doubles: U.S. Open, French doubles. So she got up number 1 in the world, but she had a lot of limitations. But gosh, she could play and compete.
No, it's a great story. Richard, Back to the Future. What comments or questions you have for Chuck?
Sorry, yeah, Chuck, I was going to ask you about that small group of coaches that you're going to try and make some changes to the landscape of American tennis. And I know that you expanded a lot or spoke a lot about mentoring. And in that group, is there a leader? Is there a spearhead? Or are you going to collectively, just bat around some ideas and try and move things forward? How do you see it working?
Yeah, the hard thing is the organization and enthusiasm. For a short period of time is easy. For a long period of time, it usually fades out. And there has to be Randy said this the other day. I talked to him quite often. He said, people are going to have to independently do this, and they're going to have to run tournaments on their own. They're going to have to do some old school tournaments and try to create the buzz through people getting back to some fundamentals. Okay, so one of the things he said, it makes real sense. Pickleball is very, very popular. Okay, it's easy to pick up, easy to put down. We can laugh at it or whatever. But the reason it catches on so fast is that it's very, very social. The social aspect of tennis, we have lost it. We've made it too complicated somewhat. Now, even that being said so, there has to be more why a person doesn't grab a ball and a racket and go to the courts and hang out. We used to go to the courts and say, hey, you want to play? Hey, I got winners. At my park in Indianapolis, we we'd wait for this number one court. Hey, I got winners. I'm third winners. And you'd go hit on the wall. And we all had this experience. Okay, pickleball has always, they have a bench and a waiting area, but it's more than that. Okay, one of the big hidden things why pickleball is popular is that the symmetry still works. Okay, the symmetry of tennis does not work with high-tech rackets. I think we've lost our senior men, especially. With the women, the technology has helped a lot of the leagues, the women's leagues. But with men, I think that the ball, okay, I try to play, both of you probably, we can't play singles. Probably we cannot cover the court. The ball striking has overcome the movement. And so I asked actually a guy from the USTA one time who did this. And one of my former players who was down there, I tried to get the number for the person who's doing senior tennis. I said, okay, I think what would work is that why don't they come out with a ball? Steve, you're on top of all the stuff. You could call it the gold standard or something like that, a senior citizen ball. Seniors are not going to play with a green ball. That's like me, who grew up in Indiana basketball, shooting an 8-foot goal. I'm not going to do it. If I have to shoot a bucket shot when I'm 89 years old and shoot hoops, I'm going to shoot a 10-foot goal. Senior men are not going to use green dot balls. But if they had a ball that was a little sort of like a green dot ball, but you could make it a little different felt or something like that. They tried that big ball. The big ball was just too much too soon, and that was way out there. But the symmetry of the court is messed up. Pickleball has symmetry. The ball striking doesn't overcome the movement. People can right away participate. But I think the participation aspect has a lot to do with it all. But to answer your question, how are we going to get a groups together and to make a difference? I think, how does any trend start? It usually starts with smaller opportunities where people do things, and then it's a high school coach who puts together tournaments or things like this. But we do need some kind of a summit, and there's the problem too. I think people's schedules now are so busy. I don't know, Steve, are there any successful tennis conferences going on where people go to share ideas like we used to? And is it just because we were younger before and it was easier to go to things like that?
Well,
it seemed like there was more activity.
Now there's these online conferences. For me, I think one is much better off to go spend time with an experienced coach. Actually, go visit a program, go watch. Write a college coach, if it's in the rules. Hey, can I come and spend 3 days just shadowing, just watching, just be a passive observer. But I think there's so many topics for a summit of coaches. I mean, early childhood development. Kids being able to catch and throw and run. And my mother used to drive through neighborhoods and say the kids must all be playing inside. Must be playing inside with the butler. I think one thing, Tennis Sangre, great guy, great player, kid from Tennessee. I guess he's not a kid anymore, but I heard him on a podcast. He was asked, how would you change tennis if you were the commissioner for the day? And he said, I'd have everybody go back to a wooden racket. They do it in pro baseball. Baseball, they're playing a wooden racket. I think if they were to modify the racket, I grew up in ice hockey, and I've heard the line, well, they're coaching the hockey out of hockey. But definitely in tennis, that's one of the reasons we have such lost arts. Kids are using those Babolat rackets, and Chris Clare always says they're trying to launch missiles. But no, I think that senior players, playing with a wooden racket to slow the game down would be better. But even at the very top of the game,
right. Well, that you're exactly right. Exactly right. do either one of y'all play golf? I play a little bit, and I'm a crummy golfer, but I've got old blades, Cleveland Classic blades, the Jay Berger told me to buy. And I've got wood, persimmon wood. I've got hickory shaft putter and these wooden persimmon woods that I can't use anymore because the balls are so hard. But my point is, the guy said, look, man, why aren't you using better? This is a friend of mine. I don't tell you, he lives down in Florida, old Pike Raleigh, I'll tell you. Pike, and he's married to Laurie.
No, I don't know him.
And Pike Raleigh, he's married to Laurie Fleming, Laurie Raleigh. And Pike was on my first team, and I played golf with him before. He says, why are you using those old clubs? I said, why? I just love the way it feels if you hit it right. He said, look, we're both crappy golfers. These better clubs just help you be a little less crappy. I go, well, that's true. And he'd get the kick out of that. But with the wood rackets, I completely agree with you, 100%. And balls, I only said because, I was thinking that, nobody's going to change the rackets now because the marketing people they sold everybody on a bill of goods that it's, it helps your game and all that. And maybe it does to a point. It allows you to hit bigger shots, but the symmetry is lost. I guess you could mess with the dynamics of the court, but they tried that, and then that looks like junior tennis or kids tennis too.
There was it was short-lived. The rally ball was 7% bigger. The only negative is it wouldn't go through a ball machine. Let me digress a little bit. The question comes back to golf. Richard, I didn't hear you should step up and say, "Yeah, I'm an awesome golfer." That was that was your chance. But,
That was my cue.
But all three of us, Richard would bring players down from Canada, and on a regular basis, and David and I it was short lived, but Robbie Seguzo, along with Caroline Bassett, they had an academy. And this is one of my favorite tennis stories of all time. Is Robbie Seguzo got to be 21 in the world. But his sister, Karen, she was really good at a young age. She won the Orange Bowl. And back when she won the Orange Bowl, say she's 11 years old, in practice, she beat Jay Berger. So they're both 11, and years go by, and now Berger's like 21, 22 years old. And Berger beats Robbie at the U.S. Open. And Mr. Seguzo, Art Seguzo, comes down to the locker room and goes, Robbie, I can't believe you lost to Jay Berger. Karen can beat Jay Berger. So, I think that's so funny. But tell us a little about Jay Berger. I mean, obviously his son is like one of the best golfers around. Isn't it true?
Yeah. It was interesting. He let him go. I think he got him into tennis first. Then he liked golf better. He was spending more time playing golf. And I think he had sort of a unique tennis swing for golf, or sort of. But he got top 10 in the world. I think he had a wrist problem or something. But Daniel, he went to Florida State, and then became he's done great. He won, I think, this one. So Dave, his name came up today with a couple of my players. They were asking, they were asking about what the intangible thing in tennis is. You have all the strokes, you get all this, coach, you got this. What's the difference that makes all the difference? Then they asked about Jay Berger. What did he have about it? He had very, the best players I told him it's the best players, it's sort of a kinesthetic sense that they not only see things, they understand things, and they feel the right things at the right time, and there is a gift to it. But some people are just not afraid of going through that, the frightening terror zone of doing something that's just way out of the norm. Jay never would be afraid of living on the edge.
Well,
he
yeah,
just competed. competed.
He was top 10 in the world. What a great competitor.
Yeah.
Here's the story. I digress a little more with your players. Lawson Duncan. I was fortunate enough through Robbie Seguza to be in Germany with the Davis Cup team in '85. And I was just asking Robbie, is Lawson Duncan a little arrogant, a little cocky? Robbie just started laughing. He said he's the nicest guy. He's just so shy.
Yeah.
But I was doing a clinic in Asheville, and I knew that Lendl loved practicing with him. Lendl just hit to his forehand, and they played a 5-set match in the morning, 5-set match in the evening. And it was a rainy day, and it was a fantastic session because I was asking questions, and people said afterwards they'd never heard Lawson talk so much. Because I just said, okay, tell us about practicing with Lendl, and it was great. And Mark Dixon, another one of your players, his father's like the nicest guy. But Dixon, I took my son to him to take serve lessons. Why don't you tell us one thing about Lawson Duncan and Mark Dixon, and then we go back to how can we help tennis in the US of A, Canada too?
Sure. I'm trying to keep it. With Lawson Duncan, absolutely. Most brilliant competitor. You know, he's from up there in place, Cullowhee, North Carolina, basically hitting off of the wall. He became a great player, hitting off the wall and training with his dad, you know, and basically in the mountains. And he's just the most unique human being ever. But he is one that if he had to follow the the UTR and you'd look level this tournament or that tournament, do you have enough points? He would have never surfaced. He basically, from Cullowhee, North Carolina, Nashville area, and he liked to fly fish as much as he liked in those mountain streams as much as he, hit a tennis ball. But he would wear out the backboard, and I don't want to get off sidetrack, but every night after dinner, if you were there late, he would be back out hitting on the wall as a player. He'd hit on the wall over and over and over again, and that's what he did. But someone like that will never be found in our system. That you have to have a UTR and all this and that. I mean, it's too segregates. It just really there's a whole group of people that just won't ever surface. So, but what a great competitor, athlete. He could have played 4 other sports and been really, really good. He could have been a great halfback or something. His running, we'd always run a mile for time, and I think he ran a 4:41 in the mile, but his 400 time was 51 flat. Which I mean, it was just amazing, for a tennis player.
And one time his pet was a wolf. At one time his Jeep went off the road. He just put his shoulder under the tire, put it back up on the road.
Yeah, that's the way it needs. He was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame down here, and I got to spend the evening with him about a year ago. It was great. And Mark Dixon, Mark just his father passed away a couple of years back. Larry Dixon. They're from Tampa. Yeah. And he came up with a group. One of the best recruiting tournaments, Paul Scarpa took me to it my first 2 years coaching. And it really got our program going because I'd go down to Florida and go to that Florida State tournament in Ocala, and then there was one over in Tampa. We'd go to the college over there. I forget what was the name of the college there. They play all those tournaments.
Hillsborough Community College.
Hillsborough, yeah. We'd go over there. I recruited John Desdunes. I recruited Rick Rudine there. I recruited Mark Dixon there. But the point is, he had all his buddies were there. They all grew up together. Florida was really a hotbed of junior tennis. And junior tennis, I think of Gainesville. Gainesville's high school team one year, it had John Ross at one, Andy Solis, Shelby Cannon, Ed Ross, and I've let somebody out. Wow, what a great. Those were all local kids that grew up. And what we need, again, is there's got to be a way to, I think part of it, too, somebody brought this up the other day, is that, I think it was Coach Randy, I was talking to him. He said our kids are only getting better when they're going to these academies where they get sort of corporate, how they put it, factory-based learning or something. I forget what he said. They just all sort of in a group. They have to go to these academies, but we don't have the kids just that go to the park and play. And he said the reason why we don't have local tournaments is they're not shooting for anything. And I just shoot, maybe I want to be on the high school team, but we need local tournaments. And our people at tournament tennis centers need to step up and to put tournaments together. And but once they put this is an L1, L2, I look, Steve, I didn't even know. I don't even know how to look up tournaments on the, come on, the years I've been in tennis. I get on the internet, I'm trying to figure out at a tournament, I go to one and they don't have a draw sheet. You got to go to your phone. I mean, that draw sheet is really, really important for kids to see their names advanced and everything.
Yeah.
So anyhow.
Oh, Mark Dixon, Larry used to come out. We had a huge backboard. He used to come out and hit the backboard. And now he was a big fan of my oldest son, played quite well when he was really young. And I remember he got a little mad at the world when he was a little bit smaller and shorter than his younger brother. And I remember Larry trying to, like a few other people, Richard, David, both trying to get him back on track. But passion. The father, Mark Dixon's father, had such passion for the game. And obviously reflective behavior. Let's go back to David, your turn. Ask Coach a question.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I feel like when we think about how to get the life back into tennis, get it headed the right way again, it's hard not to think about the doubles. And, in our lifetime, we've seen the sport of doubles take a beating in many different ways. And now, it breaks our heart, right, to see the way it's being played. But I think, again, if you go back, like when you lose your keys and backtrack, there's been a lot of changes from the top down that have rippled over into the junior game, and really just in general in the sport with doubles. But if you could talk for a moment on that and your thoughts on the changes from the college game down.
All right, thank you. And you're right. It was passed down. If you remember back, primarily people who ran pro tournaments didn't know what to do with the doubles players. So you would have doubles players come in and they cost for, rooms and food and everything. They were extras, and then they would wait around to play. And, so they were talking about getting rid of the doubles, the tournament owners. And, of course, I think they came up with a compromise. Oh, look, we'll make the tournament shorter, we'll play it within an hour, we'll use this no ad scoring, and we'll do this. And they dumbed it down. My argument at the time, and I didn't have a say so or anything, it was the way with doubles, what they should have done at the pro level is they should have, Monday and Tuesday, or Sunday and Monday, whatever. The first 2 days of the tournament should be the Fan Appreciation Day, and you have 2 rounds of doubles. So if you have a 16 draw or a 32 draw, you get about 3/4 of the players would be gone after the first 2 days. But you let people in to tournaments for free and get them interested. Your good players would come in and maybe do warm up for the tournament by, that being that hey, listen, instead of just getting there and practicing, they say, maybe I'll play doubles that'll get me into the tournament. But they need a Fan Appreciation Day, much the way golf has their practice round days. They need that for tennis too. Mm-hmm. So I'd said that they, should have done that. And that way they wouldn't have, I hate to say bastardized doubles, but they did. And then they'd be down to, how many players, maybe 4 teams left or 8 teams left. And then the tournament director could put these in at places into the draw sheet that really was right for the crowd. As a warm-up event for a big event one night or whatever. But they didn't have to do that. They just didn't promote that right. They just basically discarded doubles. And that was horrible. All of our top players, used to play singles and doubles both in the, for the training aspect. So now, of course, it's what they've done in college is laughable. It's laughable and embarrassing. They have one set of doubles, no ad scoring, and Steve, you'd love this. We're playing Florida State about one of my first years here at Citadel. We got blitzed really bad. I mean, we had one set of doubles, 1, 2, and 3, and we literally were done in about 18 minutes. Okay, so I went over to the referee and I go, no, ref, my guys are too tired. They're too tired. That they need at least 40 minutes rest before we start singles. That was too excruciating. And I went over to coach. I goes, hey, we can't go on like this. You know, it's just too. So anyhow, it's laughable. No, double's in trouble. But here's what I've always said too. Every player that I've ever seen come up through the ranks, whether 16s, 18s, whatever, and they start getting their, I don't care. Des Dunes was one like this. What they'd start doing is they'd start doing well in doubles first. They'd be comfortable, and then they'd find themselves in the finals day with other players, the top singles players, and they sort of association breeds assimilation. In other words, they learned. And it was a big, big part of everything. And we ran tournaments for years where you play 2 out of 3 set doubles. Our college matches, you play 2 out of 3 set doubles. One subtlety in our college matches, too, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but we're doing doubles first, 3 one-set matches, then singles. We have this poor guy, no, I should say, but the poor guy, say you have some young lady as a freshman and she's out on the court, the last one out there, and she loses the team for a match. It's like a kid who misses a 30-yard chip shot field goal at the end of the whole team loses because of them. We have the last person out there, and that's not in when we did doubles. Secondly, you had a team out there. We had 2 people. They had support each other. They learned teamwork. It was much, much better to finish with doubles. Paul Scarpa came up with the Scarpa scoring system. That was sort of an abbreviation, and we used that for a while. But again, the ITA went to this abbreviation of an abbreviation for doubles, and it just diluted, polluted, prostituted. It's really disgusting. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's not time. That's just stupid.
No, I mean,
it's
playing to 6. 6 isn't even divisible by 4. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it is. Some of those tournaments you're going to, my daughter liked playing tennis pretty good. And as much, I could teach her, I couldn't afford it. If you go 3 days to a tournament or 4 days to a tournament, you have to pay hotel rooms. They're $200 a night. You've got all the meals. So let's say you spend $1,000. My friend spent $1,200 at a tournament down here in Charleston, with hotel rooms and everything. Well, it rained one day. Then they did abbreviated scoring. He said, my son got to play 47 games of tennis, and I divide that into 1,200. Okay, well, it cost me $24 a game or something, to play. And he just said, I can't do this. And so, we've got to change that. What you said is right, Steve. Our first tournaments we used to play, we all brought a can of balls. Might have cost us $10 to get into the tournament. If you won, you carried a can of balls to the next tournament. To the next round. If you lost, you got the 3 balls, and that's how we did it. So, the doubles, get back to the doubles. We really shortchanged that, and we really need to reemphasize that. It's a lot. It's a team activity. Doubles and pickleball is a lot more fun than singles. Doubles and tennis is we've really got to reemphasize this.
Well, and I think adults with kids is so key with that too. I mean, having players locally at your club or at the parks, adults mixing in and playing with kids.
Yes.
It's a kind of an impromptu mentorship almost. And some of the adults that are 40 plus years old, they can still play great doubles, and they play conventional doubles. So, I think I'm a big believer in adults with kids.
100%. We had a court number 1 at Garfield Park, where I grew up in Indianapolis. Court number 1 was the best court, and you always had adults playing there, and you would have the courage to run down and say, "Could I have winners?" And you would get to play with one of the losers, and you'd say, you play with me, and then you would play and you'd learn. And we had a pecking order that you had to beat. You had to first beat this old guy, one guy, and then you worked your way up the ladder. But kids haven't changed. People say they've changed. We've changed the stimulus for our kids, is what's happened. And they haven't changed.
Yeah, I like the expression, kids are still kids, but the times have changed. We try to promote one bounce doubles. Everybody comes in. Sometimes we do it. Everybody comes in, but you can't poach on the first ball, just so the kid gets a chance to come in 1, 2, 3, split step, play the volley. But I think we need.
Okay, one bounce doubles. Explain again here.
Yeah, so the only time it bounces is on the return of serve, and then everybody has to come in. You can do it. You can do it as partner doubles. Going to Division I tennis matches. So even on the men's side, sometimes it's a safe bet that 2 out of the 3 teams will play 1-up, 1-back doubles, because it just wasn't emphasized. We went through Don Meyer last week. It's not what you teach; it's what you emphasize. And people should be able to serve and volley. If you don't serve and volley, you don't serve and volley.
Right. Yes. I make my guys as freshmen. I tell them you have to serve volley. If you want to play doubles, you have to serve volley. Every point's first and second seed serve. Yeah. They don't like it at first, but then they learn. They learn how to volley.
Recalling a moment that I got to meet Chuck in person, and I remember it. I doubt you do, but it was up at Kalamazoo, and watching Chad Clark play, who was a young kid that I worked with, play Berkowitz. Yeah. And you made a prophetic statement saying that match probably wouldn't be that competitive in the near future. And I think both of them, they were good players, but Chad definitely went on a different trajectory.
Yeah, well, we used to, and hopefully I wouldn't say that derogatory towards Chad, that he wasn't going to get much bigger. One of the things that in recruiting, the first thing I learned this with basketball, that the kids who I looked at when they got to be 16 and 17 were the kids that still were not shaving. They had a big frame, and they had good hand-eye coordination. They're bound to get really, really good. A lot of the kids mature. That junior tennis, of course, you'll see kids at 14 are already shaving, and they have a head start. And of course, they're good because they're bigger, but they don't the intangible decision making and understanding of the game and things they don't understand. So they don't learn that they can bypass with that. It's almost a detriment to mature early. The kids who mature later, of course, and then the thing you look at as coach most of all is speed. There's a grace, there's a balance, and there's a grace to movement with the speed. If they move well, come on, it's a running sport. If you move well and you have a feel for the ball, you're going to get very good if you do the work. So that's probably what I was doing. I was always looking for the sleepers. We weren't able early in my career to recruit the top players, so you looked at the kids that were going to get a lot bigger, but sort of there was special way that they understood the game and respected it. Well, the kinesthetic part of the perceptual skills are just huge, aren't they? I mean, it's the kids. Yeah, the kids who have a feel for it, they have a knack. They feel the ball, and that's a tough one to teach.
Yeah.
Chuck, what's your take on the new rule? I'm not so clear on it. junior college players having another year of eligibility.
It's awful. It's awful. I just think that that'll be so bad. Again, if you look at the recruiting pool, any parent out there that has a youngster that's a junior in high school, you're saying, oh my golly, because again, the pecking order should be high school kids first. Now they could manage this, guys, if they would just listen, during the school year until say April or say May, you can't recruit anybody or sign anybody except high school seniors. They could change the thing. And then the transfer portal should not open up until after the school year is over. And kids know, hey, I feel really bad and embarrassed that I didn't make the starting lineup, but I'm going to work through this. And I know my spring training was good and I'm going to give it another try. Instead, the kids who are having tough time, they didn't get to start enough or whatever, they're mad at the coach or something, they bail out. So that transfer portal is loaded. So, and then, of course, the junior college part of the thing, junior colleges have always been a good alternative for kids who are just sort of caught in the middle, either academically or, they just hadn't quite matured. They just needed more reps. But now it is like a holding pond, guys. It's like a holding pond. Well, I haven't got the right place to go yet. I'm going to go here. But it's loaded up to the place now where it's extremely competitive. Junior colleges are extremely competitive in every sport now. And the junior colleges are, of course, a lot of them. We used to have maybe 6 or 7 in South Carolina. I think we have 2 now. They become 4-year schools, and of course they served a very, very big purpose for a lot of kids. But the biggest thing is the transfer portal is the pecking order is all messed up. It needs to be high school kids, then it needs to be junior college, then it needs to be transport kids. For absolutely the kids that just have a great, great reason to transfer. They shouldn't be allowed to jump ship like they do.
No, it's great to hear your answer on that. I'm was under the impression that you could, at first it came out, and I talked to a couple of college coaches about this, that you could play 2 years of junior college and then play 4 years at the NCAA level. And then I read where you could play 1 year. David, myself, I spent 10 years at Tyler Junior College, 15 years at Hillsborough Community College. One place I was a department head. The other place I ran a co-op. But junior college tennis. We ran David must have been there. We ran the NJCA tournament, the men's. Is it Owen Casey or Casey Owen, the Irish kid?
Owen Casey, yeah. He was at Anderson, yeah.
Yeah. No, that was high level tennis.
Oh gosh, the Rincon boys, Mario and his brother went to North Greenville. They've ended up staying and doing a great job in coaching.
Yeah, one of the Recon boys. By the way, I was a tournament director. One of the Recon boys at Owen Casey. I went out and I handled it pretty much like a hockey referee. I said, guys, whoever messes up next loses. And I was a tournament director. I wasn't at the. It was just a heated battle, but the level of play. Now I believe there's 2 teams in Florida. At one time there was 32 teams. So that's something else. With
and again, they're chasing money or stat. They're chasing. They were very much needed. I don't know what the motivation is for that. Really, to tell you the truth, what it pops out in my head as a coach is we could have 18-year-old kids now playing against 24-year-olds, and that's Commando Warriors against Boy Scouts, and it's it's not. Come on, it's a completely different ball game.
You're a few years older than I am. When you went to college, could freshmen play?
I played basketball my freshman year at Tennessee Tech, and freshmen were ineligible. I was on the freshman team for football and basketball. they could not play. And on tennis and minor sports, we call them minor sports. Then they changed them to non-revenue. Then they changed them to something more politically correct. Was Olympic sports? Come on, no, they're minor sports. But you could play when I went, right?
Now, I mean, a lot of times I don't think it's the greatest where a team will reload and they have a player come in January. They haven't been there for any development. They come in January and
how good would it be, Steve, guys, if like in football or basketball, kids come in your freshman year, you get acclimated to your academics and things, and then you sit out your freshman year, then you play your sophomore year, and now you know what's going on. How many times have you heard of any quarterback anymore being academically ineligible? Do you think that'll ever happen? You really think any of these, is anybody academically ineligible anymore? I wonder what's going on there.
Yeah.
Maybe there are, but for a fact that we've created a minor league. What I'm afraid of is that, football is going to be like, minor league for the NFL. The people, these big donors are going to stop showing up at the games. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, no. Quarterbacks in college, they're getting $1 million deals. It's
crazy. The one that from Georgia, the guy's transferring to Miami after being in Georgia for 2 years. How do you do that? I don't. The motivation, is just it's just wrong. If you just think of the locker rooms, the problems in the locker rooms with kids, you have a millionaire coming in, new guy, you have a guy that's been there 3 years training and working his way up, then they bring in this guy who's got a little bit of a only me attitude. It's the me show, it's not going to work. I don't know how the coaches have. That's why Saban got out of it for sure.
Well, I don't think in the Olympics. I was not a big fan of the Dream Team. They had the NBA, and I loved it in the Olympics. One of the best stories ever, obviously, is a Miracle on Ice. When we used to have amateurs competing for the USA. That was great. It gave people a chance, and the pros had their platform. But I really liked it when the amateur players were playing in the Olympics.
Yeah, that was the quote at the end of that movie. Is it's now they have these teams that there's no longer ever going to be something like that.
Well, one of your greatest mentors, Harry Ottman, or Mr. Ottman, said, money ruined it. Where he
hated.
Go ahead.
He put that up on Labor's book. That book. I hope people get that. Have you read that, Steve? You read? I know you're. Who was visiting you and said, "My golly, your library of tennis books." But it's just the one. It's not the Bud Collins Rod Laver book, but it was put out a few years. Carlos Goffey sent it to me. This Rod Laver.
Yeah, I need to read that book.
You can't put it down. I could not put it down but he talks about Hopman, how much Hopman hated when money came into tennis. That it ruined it. He talks about all the first years of how when he was on tour, the eight of them, they would get station wagons and drag a court around. They'd go into a town and put the court down. Then whatever they drew in attendance, they would split half of it with the house, and they'd get the other half. And it was so good. But the amount of 3 out of 5 set matches that were played, and the way he talks about it's the guy who was the helped him write it or whatever. It was it's just you'd love it. You'd love it.
No,
really makes you.
I'll read that.
Proud. Yeah.
I think the great story with Laver is the brothers. They got the wheelbarrow, and it's basically like he grew up on clay because they went from one ant pile to the next, and they built their own tennis court.
Yes. Right. Yes, he did. He talks about that. Yeah.
Yeah. The backstory is always more interesting than the front story.
Yeah.
Let's do this. David, why don't we go one more round? I apologize to listeners that we lost Richard. Maybe his wife has him on a curfew. But let's hit the Chuck. This is fantastic. All these pearls of wisdom. Go ahead, David. One more round, and we'll let Coach take a nap.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've covered so much. I covered a lot of the questions I had for you, Coach. And one of the things that when I think of Back to the Future, and you talked about it at the park in Indianapolis, and kind of the pickup basketball mentality, and I feel like we are in an era of little or no unsupervised play, and I think that it really hurts. And Dallas Fort Worth is certainly a large metropolitan area at this point, and we'll have two kids that are top 10 in the country, and they might go to different clubs. One might go to ours, and the other to a local club nearby. But getting them together to play a match is extremely hard. Takes an act of Congress, and then getting them together to play a match where there's no parents, or that one of the parents doesn't recruit a coach to chart or watch or do whatever, is even harder. And I think that unsupervised play is critical to creating champions. Yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that and how it used to be, but it is no more.
I think the only thing you could do, about the only thing we could do is we have to have individuals just run tournaments. The USTA, I'm not running anybody down, USTA, the ITA, or whatever, but these organizations are not, they are the supportive bodies. They could say they're the governing bodies, or they don't. They don't own, nobody owns tennis. That's the biggest thing. No one owns tennis. As an individual, if anybody listens to this, you could run your own tournament in your own neighborhood. You could call it anything you want to. Nobody has a patent on names. I could call one that we have here, South Carolina State Championship. Nobody has a patent on that name, but people need to run their own tournaments, and it does not have to be USTA sanctioned. Yeah. And maybe we have a USTA person or something that doesn't like hearing that, but you don't own nobody owns tennis. But it takes individuals to just say, look, I want to do this. I want to create this. We're not doing what we need to do now. I was telling the story the other day to one of the kids. I said, we've lost the reverence for tennis. I said, in golf, I would need to make my point here, make this sort of smooth. In golf, if there's not a golf course you don't go to, he said, sir, you got to wear a collared shirt. And sir, you need to do this. Well, there are some local ones that they're not that picky and stuff. But still, when you go to a golf course, there's certain behavior, there's certain things, not behavior, but dress or decor that you have to do. I said, I played at the park in cut-off blue jeans, high-top black tennis shoes, my T-shirt. But I went out to this Tarkenton Park, they called it, or this other park when I played a tournament. I had my Jack Kramer cream-colored shorts, I had one pair, and I'd have maybe my black tennis shoes. But I knew that pair of tennis pants, I knew I was a tennis player. I knew I was a tennis player. That was very, very special. Those rackets, I'd take a racket, and I sort of had to hide it sometimes from some of my buddies. They thought I was playing, about playing tennis. But it was special to me. It was special. I was so proud of that. I was just like somebody who respects the guitar, plays a guitar, somebody who plays a musical instrument. It was special. Thinking that we need to have individuals just step up and do this, but our leaders, if any of those USTA guys are listening, you got to dump the point system. We've got to go back. Going back to the future means while we had was perfect. The point system was a gimmick that the computer people like because they can figure out stuff in a hurry, and it looks good on paper, but it does not inspire. Our kids need to be inspired. And so I think running tournaments, one last thing I was thinking about, when I was at College Park, a guy up there, Ray Benton, had this program where we would go into the inner city the DC area and teach tennis. And we went out there. This is really interesting. We went out there and about 20 kids out there. And so we started trying to teach them. In about 4 minutes, the kids go, "Oh man!" And one was chasing another, and it was out of control. And so the next one, I talked to the guy, the boss, and I said, "Look, Ray," I said, "I think it'd be better. These kids don't want to learn all these strokes. I think they need to just compete." The next time, what we did, we went out there and we sort of we said, "Okay, here are the rules. You got to hit the ball in this area, and you go ahead and just keep score by ones here first, and we can teach how to keep score." We go ahead and play. Well, they started competing some. And then, one said, "Well, how do you hold that racket?" And then people wanted to learn. I think we do that backwards, too. I think that's really important that we get kids competing as quick as possible. And now they'll change their strokes. There's a repetition, minimum or maximum. There's a threshold, I guess, where you sure don't want to have bad habits after a certain place, but everybody starts out with crummy habits, and stuff. So I don't know if I answered your question there, but we've got our leaders have got to step up, and there's again, that's important. Our leadership has got to step up, but we have to step up and run some tournaments ourselves and stay. What we could do is just give to other people and try to help pass on to kids and stuff what we know about tennis. Yeah. But it's a special. It's not pickleball. Okay, there's nothing wrong with pickleball, but miniature golf is not golf either.
Too many people trying to microwave tennis. I think with Richard asking you about the summit. I think sometimes you get too many people talking. The guardians of the game, I consider you a guardian of the game, and it's great for your words to be heard. What we're trying to do is carry the torch. Like say, for example, some of the scientific principles that the late Vic Braden brought to the table, or what Dennis Vandermeer did with progressions, or Welby Van Horn with balance. That's another thing too, is which ties in with David's theme, Back to the Future. We can't, and I think in tennis, what happens many times is we're looking many times at coaches from other sports. But when you say leadership, leadership is different than management. And I don't think it's a matter of just counting beans and how much money's made. And I think too many people in tennis forgot there is an overhead. The overhead is the business side of it. I'm always saying the kid who has the most overhead attempts in a 12-hour tournament has got a good chance to be the best kid. No, this has been great, Chuck. I really appreciate it, David, Richard, Yvonne. Definitely, we say for the tennis treasure chest, you shared a lot of pearls. Yeah, the Boy Scouts, the kid who's last year 14s, I tell parents all the time, there's a good chance that when they play their first match as a freshman, they're going to be playing the kids that are 16s, 18s. You're going to be playing a kid that could be 4 or 5 years older. But everybody, thank you so much, Chuck. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Very much. I need, Steve, I could get you guys, if I could get your email or your contact, that'd be great. I'd love to be in touch and share stuff. And that's where we're at right now. I mean, we've got to share ideas. We've got to try to figure out how to use the experience that we've had to have some impact on others, different generations. I think more than anything, we have to fight to protect the history and the heritage of our game. That's the most important thing. When you were, gosh, I appreciate so much you listen to those saying. Most of them, they were my mother's. She used to think. I always said I couldn't remember anything unless I had some rhyme or quip or something like that. The one I have a great friend who passed away, and the best saying, I tell my guys this all the time, the best saying I think I've ever heard is that my friend that died. He said, "The world promises us buckets of rhinestones, but God gives us a chance to make one diamond with our life." And that's probably, as a teacher, the best thing that I'm passing on to you for, the sake of what I learned from her, So,
No, that's great. That's great. Then to add to that, a diamond is, how we always go, diamond is produced by pressure. We go over it all the time. Are you preparing your kid for the road or the road for the kid?
Yeah, and our society is falling for rhinestones. Yeah. There's rhinestones everywhere, and there's rhinestones everywhere, and it promises us everything, and money's part of that, fame, and all that stuff's part of that. But guys, tennis is a tremendous diamond. I think that I owe it everything, the sport of tennis, the opportunity that I've been given through it. So I'm so grateful, and thank you all. And I'd love to stay in touch, guys. I'd love it. And we've got to try to do something if we can. And anybody listening out there that listens to this, get a group of people together, please. I'd call on you. Say, let's go back to the future with our tennis. That's a great theme, and that's what we need to do, guys. We shouldn't have abandoned anything of our history and heritage. We should not. We can't dilute 150 years of certain things. Just say, hey, we just came up with something that's a little flashier. We can't do that. So,
yeah, and I think
God bless y'all.
Thank you. I think
thank you.
Nailed it on the head. But also too, everyone is what can everybody do individually and then collectively? Because just go back. I do agree. I think David, Richard, Yvonne, we all know tennis is in trouble, and we've got to fight the good fight. But everybody, good night.
You always have, Steve. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for doing this.
All right, guys. All right. Thank you. Good night. Adios.
Right. Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Another podcast in the books. Sorry to our listeners, we lost Richard. It's always great to have Richard on from the Great White North with Chuck Kriese. Could listen to him all day long. Great for the game. The game needs guardians. All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.